They thought it was just another rock, an ice-dusted fragment drifting in from the outer void. Cold, indifferent, meaningless. Another relic flung into our solar system like a cosmic coin toss. But 3I Atlas refused to behave like anything we've ever seen. Its trajectory defied known laws. Its internal emissions pulsed with unnatural rhythm. And now, as the James Webb Space Telescope turns its unrelenting gaze toward this ancient traveler, it has returned images that are rewriting the boundaries of what we consider natural. Because hidden beneath the object's surface, deep inside its rotating mass, lies something no scientist was prepared to see. A pattern not random, not geological, but engineered. A repeating geometry, mathematically precise, echoing shapes we only associate with intelligent design. Grids, angles, walls, corridors, cavities spaced at exact intervals. Webb didn't just find reflections. It found a structure. A structure that resembles the layout of a city. So the question we now face isn't just what is 3I Atlas. The question is who built this and why is it heading straight through our solar system? Let's explore what James Webb has uncovered. At first, 3I Atlas was filed away as a curiosity. The third known interstellar object to enter our system. It followed an odd but traceable path. Slight deviations were noted, but nothing to raise alarms until James Webb was directed to study its surface in infrared. What the telescope found wasn't noise, wasn't randomness, but a recurring geometric alignment hidden beneath the layers of cosmic dust. Using its NIRCam and MIR instruments, Webb captured heat signatures that traced outlines too regular, too deliberate to be random. Long, narrow corridors, right-angled intersections, enclosed cavities spaced with perfect symmetry. Scientists at first dismissed the readings as sensor anomalies, but as more data came in, it became undeniable. The structure inside 3I Atlas had the proportions and spatial logic of urban planning. This wasn't erosion. This wasn't crystallization. It was layout. Something that had been designed and perhaps even inhabited. If these dimensions were translated into a terrestrial context, we'd be looking at what resembles a city block, not just once but repeated, almost like modules, as if whatever built this structure used a grid-based architecture consistent across internal compartments. The implications were staggering because in nature nothing aligns itself into repeating perfect right angles. But intelligence does. While the shapes alone were cause for alarm, it was the thermal behavior of these internal patterns that truly set off alarms. The core of 3I Atlas emits infrared pulses, but only from specific zones. And those zones align perfectly with the structural grids. This means that the heat isn't radiating naturally. It's being emitted in localized timed bursts, much like heat from infrastructure or even reactors. Webb sensors noted fluctuations consistent with what on Earth we might call controlled temperature regulation. Imagine walking through an abandoned building where some rooms are still warm, not decaying but active. This behavior, coupled with unusual electromagnetic interference surrounding the object, led engineers to propose something shocking. The internal cavities might not just be hollow. They might be shielded. Some frequencies bounced off them entirely, as if they were lined with a material designed to repel radiation. Other frequencies entered but didn't return. It was as if something inside was absorbing them, storing them, maybe even interpreting them. Suddenly, the notion of a city-like structure wasn't science fiction anymore. It was becoming engineering fact. Because the only reason to create temperature-regulated signal-blocking grid-aligned cavities inside a traveling object is if those cavities serve a purpose. And if that purpose was survival, we may not be looking at a rock. We may be looking at a vessel. To fully grasp the anomaly of 3I Atlas's structure, researchers began comparing it to the closest man-made analogs, underground cities, nuclear bunkers, and spacecraft. What they found was disturbing. Not only did the internal layout resemble human structures, but its proportions mirrored some of the most efficient designs ever built for long-term human survival. Some of the chambers were hexagonal, a shape used in aerospace engineering to maximize space and strength. Others followed Fibonacci spacing, a ratio found in both nature and high-efficiency architectural layouts. One physicist from the European Space Agency proposed that the internal design of 3I Atlas could represent a form of environmental compartmentalization, suggesting that the structure was intended to shield life or equipment from the extreme conditions of deep space. What if this wasn't a remnant of a civilization but a lifeboat? A fragment of something much greater? Maybe a station, maybe a ship, maybe even a colony sent into space not to explore but to flee. And what does it mean that we've intercepted it now in our time in our corner of the cosmos? Is it coincidence? Is it on a fixed trajectory? Or did it detect us long before we ever noticed it? Because if 3I Atlas was meant to carry something or someone across the stars, then its arrival is not just an event. It's a message. For weeks, agencies have argued over what to call the structure inside 3 Atlas. Some say it's non-natural architecture. Others call it a thermal anomaly with geometric resonance. But what no one wants to say publicly, at least not yet, is what it might actually be. Evidence of extraterrestrial engineering. The very term still triggers denial in mainstream circles. But every hour that passes, more data comes in, and every new scan reinforces the same idea. This object is not entirely random. Its features were placed, aligned, tuned, and whether it's active or dormant, it is not just passing through our system. It's revealing itself. And as 3 Atlas continues its silent drift, governments are now scrambling to establish observation priorities. Military satellites have turned their eyes toward it. Communication arrays are being recalibrated. Something has shifted in tone behind closed doors. The kind of shift that happens when the unthinkable becomes undeniable. Because if what we're seeing is a structure, a city-like machine frozen in time, then this is no longer a scientific discovery. This is a civilizational event. As the Webb images circulated among international observatories, a curious pattern began to emerge, not from the object, but from the people observing it. Some of the most prominent astrophysicists outright refused to comment. Others offered vague euphemistic statements, calling the structure unexpected, unprecedented, or worse, statistically improbable. Behind those carefully chosen words was fear, not of the object itself, but of what accepting it would mean. To admit that we had just captured an image of a city-like architecture inside an interstellar object would be to rip apart centuries of scientific consensus. It would mean that life, intelligent, architectural, technological life, existed not only beyond Earth, but was once mobile, perhaps exploratory, perhaps desperate. And that life might have left behind a relic designed to survive the death of its creators. Ancient silence between stars. And if that's true, then the question isn't what is 3 Atlas. The real question is what happens now that it knows we're watching. So instead of facing that monumental reality, the scientific world hesitated. And in that hesitation, the truth slipped further into shadow. Not everyone chose silence. In a move that stunned the global astronomical community, a coalition of US and European defense satellites recalibrated their focus toward 3I Atlas. These weren't standard telescopes. These were thermal imaging, radio frequency tracking, deep space interference monitoring systems, usually reserved for spy satellites or missile defense. Why aim such sensitive equipment at a comet? The answer may lie in what they saw that we haven't. Rumors began leaking from inside these agencies. That the object isn't just structured, it's slowly rotating in a non-natural pattern. That some of its thermal zones blink at fixed intervals. That gravitational perturbations suggest mass redistribution inside its core. As if machinery deep within were realigning itself. And the most chilling leak of all, a faint rhythmic pulse, not radio, not heat, but gravitational. As if something inside was using gravity to communicate. Suddenly, the military wasn't watching a rock. It was monitoring a device. In a confidential roundtable involving astrophysicists and AI experts, Webb's data was fed into a high-resolution spatial interpreter. An AI model designed to reconstruct 3D structures from multispectral scans. The results were shocking. The model rendered not just a layout but a full architectural map. Multiple levels, transit corridors, heat exchange systems, energy nodes, even what could resemble storage chambers or containment rooms. The AOI, with no preconceived notions, simply followed the data. What emerged looked eerily like a self-contained biosphere, a vessel meant to carry either organic life or hyper-advanced systems across unimaginable distances. And here's the twist. One scientist analyzing the curvature and orientation of the corridors noted that the design would not suit human physiology. The turns were too sharp, the vertical distances too narrow. Whatever moved inside this place was not built like us. And maybe it didn't walk. With the discovery reaching high-level scientific and military circles, a deeper debate has begun. Is 3I Atlas a graveyard, a derelict craft lost in time? Or is it a message deliberately sent toward intelligent life? Some believe its precision is proof of intent, that no natural object behaves this way, and no dead vessel would emit controlled heat pulses or aligned gravitational echoes. If this is a message, though, it raises a terrifying implication. The builders wanted to be found, or worse, they assumed someone would find it and they left something behind inside. But others urge caution, pointing to the possibility that we are not decoding a signal. We are triggering it. That by scanning, probing, even observing it at such depth, we may be activating systems that were meant to stay dormant, like stepping into a sealed tomb that was never meant to be opened. And as Webb continues its observations, the question now haunting every agency, every lab, every whispering conversation behind closed doors is no longer what is it? It's what happens when it wakes up. As data continues to stream in, astrophysicists are beginning to ask a question once considered absurd. Who built it? Not what, but who. The structure inside 3I Atlas defies natural processes, but it doesn't defy reason. Every angle, every chamber, every thermal vent suggests intention and not just survival but long-term planning. This wasn't a desperate escape pod or a crude ark flung into space by a dying race. No, this appears precise, calculated, modular, and potentially replicable. The possibility that this object is part of a network, a fleet even, has begun circulating among a small circle of STY researchers. Because if this structure is one of many, it means we haven't just found a relic. We've stumbled upon infrastructure. Galactic infrastructure. The ruins of a civilization advanced enough to seed artifacts across star systems. Or worse, a probe sent in advance to scan, observe, and report. Which raises a terrifying question. Report? To whom? Behind the scenes, the world's most powerful nations are not staying silent. Leaks from space agencies, embassies, and even private contractors reveal that world leaders have been briefed and that what they've been told has triggered a quiet but massive mobilization. The US has reportedly repositioned 3 orbital platforms to monitor 3I Atlas 24/7. China has deployed an AI-powered deep space tracking system normally reserved for anti-satellite operations. The European Space Agency has gone dark on all data related to the object, refusing to release even raw public logs. Why the secrecy? Because for the first time in history, governments are grappling with the potential existence of a non-human megastructure passing through our system, and they don't know what to tell the public. The fear isn't just that it's real. The fear is what happens when people believe it. When the idea of intelligent life becomes undeniable. When faith systems, political hierarchies, and scientific models are forced to reckon with something older, greater, and technologically superior. Amid the scientific chaos and political maneuvers, something unexpected has happened. Ancient civilizations are being re-examined through the lens of 3 Atlas. Historians and anthropologists have begun identifying eerie similarities between the geometric layout inside the object and long-lost mythologies. Some indigenous star maps depict circular cities in the sky. Ancient Sumerian texts reference chariots of the sky with central halls surrounded by 6 vaults, a layout disturbingly close to the 3D renderings of 3I Atlas. Even Egyptian scholars have noticed that the thermal nodes inside the object align with the same golden ratio used in pyramid construction. Is this coincidence? Or could ancient civilizations have encountered, recorded, or even remembered similar objects in our distant past? And if so, is 3I Atlas a first contact or a return visit? The final act of revelation didn't come through speculation. It came through motion. James Webb's ultra-sensitive instruments calibrated to detect infinite decimal movements have detected a subtle but undeniable change within the structure. One of the internal chambers, previously static, has shifted position by 0.02 degrees. In cosmic terms, that's minuscule. But in mechanical terms, that's a door moving or a mechanism unlocking. The shift occurred during a solar flare event that bombarded 3I Atlas with electromagnetic radiation. Could this ancient structure be solar reactive? Could it be designed to awaken only in proximity to a star? One scientist compared it to a hibernation protocol where the object remains dormant until it receives energy from a viable star system. That viable system is ours. And with that tiny movement, 3I Atlas has proven it is not just a fossil in flight. It is responsive. It may be dormant, but it is not dead. When NASA, ESA, and even the private sector began to coordinate observations of 3I Atlas, a long-forgotten document resurfaced. The UN's Declaration of Principles Concerning Activities Following the Detection of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, originally drafted decades ago during STI's infancy. It outlines the protocols for response in the event of undeniable evidence of intelligent non-Earth life. But here's the problem. 3I Atlas doesn't send a signal. It doesn't broadcast. It doesn't say hello. And yet, the discovery of artificial internal geometry, thermal regulation, and now mechanical movement, forces the scientific world to reconsider what counts as communication. A door moving, a pulse, a design with meaning. If we accept these as forms of intentionality, then by protocol we are now in contact, not in dialogue but in observation. And that means every action we take next, every probe, every signal, every attempt to scan deeper could be interpreted as a reply. And in a dialogue this ancient, we have no idea who might be listening. Some researchers frustrated by the limits of physical observation are turning to something even more radical. The idea that 3 Atlas may not house biological life or even machinery in the conventional sense, but rather non-loized intelligence. A form of consciousness that is not stored in brain tissue or wiring, but encoded in gravitational patterns, quantum states, or even the geometry of space itself. Could the object be alive, not in a biological way but in a computational or dimensional sense? Could it be a thinking entity disguised as an object? One physicist described it as a passive algorithm woven into the skin of a comet, a cosmic sleeper not waiting to speak but to be decoded. And if that's true, we may have just plugged our best telescope into an alien mind without knowing which part we're touching. Rewinding the path of 3 Atlas has led to one chilling realization. Its trajectory is not entirely random. While it enters the solar system at an angle inconsistent with gravitational capture, its curved course post-entry brings it eerily close to multiple key orbital zones. First past Jupiter, then swinging close to Mars, then grazing Earth's orbital neighborhood before heading out. It's as if the object was sampling planetary signatures like a drone scanning for biosignatures. One hypothesis now gaining traction is that this is not just a visitor, it's a probe designed to find planets like ours. And once found to relay that data. The question becomes, was the relay triggered when Webb scanned it, or did 3I Atlas already send its message long before we noticed? If it is already transmitted, to where and to whom? And here is the most unsettling theory of all. A reversal of the narrative we've told ourselves. What if 3I Atlas wasn't a random object we happened to intercept with our telescope, but a probe designed to detect emerging civilizations the moment they reach a certain level of observational capacity? In other words, it detected us the moment we detected it. James Webb's powerful gaze may have acted as a trigger, a cosmic handshake. The telescope became a mirror and the object blinked back. Some now fear that 3I Atlas was never meant to communicate, but to record, to judge, to signal whether a planet's inhabitants had become detectable, active, or potentially dangerous. Not a weapon, not yet, but a witness, a harbinger. And if it has confirmed our presence, then what follows next may be entirely out of our control. So, here we are in a moment of human history that may one day be remembered as the instant everything changed. Not with a landing, not with a transmission, not with the roar of spacecraft, but with a silent city-like structure frozen inside a rock drifting across the stars. We didn't find ruins on Mars. We didn't hear voices from Alpha Centauri. We simply looked deeper than ever before. And the universe blinked back because 3I Atlas is not just a rock, not just a visitor, not just an object passing by. It is a construct, a relic, a vessel, a signal, a structure that challenges the arrogance of our scientific certainty and tears a hole in the curtain of cosmic isolation we've wrapped ourselves in for centuries. And maybe, just maybe, this wasn't an accident. Maybe 3I Atlas didn't drift here by chance. Maybe it was placed, released, or activated the moment we became capable of seeing it. Not to contact us, not to destroy us, but to observe us. Because perhaps we were never alone. Perhaps we were never unknown.